This is the PowerGroom Multi-Cyclonic, and this particular machine is junk. Don't buy it. Of course you can't buy these new anymore anyways, but I've been using this machine for about 48 hours now. I fixed it 2 nights ago, so not last night but the night before, and the night after I initially fixed it and ran it in the last video that you saw of this, I installed a brand new Hepa filter, which as you can tell now is full of dust and looks genuinely used. I washed all the parts out, including the Hepa filter cage, which is now covered in dust. The actual filter grill is covered in dust, and most importantly, this brand new filter isn't even visible. How? Look at that. This isn't even close to being full. And yeah. Looks like some debris got stuck up in there. So, now we have to actually clean this out. Wonder what happens if we turn this on. Okay. And you can also see right there that this actual filter door is warped. So this is also discolored, although it's not really its fault. So we'll go ahead and put this back up in there. And we still have to clean this out, so we'll clean this out real quick and put this back together and get started on the actual review. Well, at least unlike the filters in the bagless power forces, at least this actually mostly cleaned up okay. So at least I managed to vacuum off the filter and get it pretty clean. Of course my camera can't even tell the difference. But yeah, so this filters horribly. You could literally see the dust in like the marks of the back of the filter grill, and again this was after just a couple days of usage and one wad of dirt that I sucked up that most vacuums would handle with no problems. So that is back, and so we can go ahead and put this back together and get on with the review. So put the bin back in, just like that, and twist this into the position where it says lock, and you do the opposite to let go of the dirt bin in order to actually empty it. And you want to empty it once it gets to this full line, or really just do it every time you vacuum, because by the time this gets full, then you're gonna have to clean this filter, which you can wash, but even if you do wash it every time you empty the bin, so you're probably gonna want to wash this filter at least every time you use it. So if you use it every 2 weeks, if you use it every week, you're gonna need to wash it every week, and that's just too often, frankly. But if you're willing to do it, you can. But if you do that, since you'll be washing it all the time, the filter will deteriorate faster, so you have to replace this about every year. And this host motor filter, which again on the equivalent bagged Bissell, you could probably replace these about every 2 or 3 years. This one, you really need to change this at least every 6 months. So again, a lot of filter maintenance on this. So you got to buy one of these, which if you buy a genuine one, these are usually like $10. If you buy the pre-motor filter, then that's going to be probably another $10 as well. Now, both of these filters are style 14 filters. So you can see this is the package for the Hepa Media filter. It's style 8 and 14. This was a genuine Bissell. And in the case of the pre-motor filter, it's the same thing, although I can't find that paperwork, but that was a style 14 filter as well. So all that's pretty self-explanatory. So changing these filters is easy, which is good because you're gonna have to do it all the time. This is not a sealed system, not even close. It just spewed a bunch of dust in my room, so it obviously is nowhere near a sealed system. So this is just unacceptable, even if you don't have allergies. Alright, so here we're going to do the classic Intellitech Studios pickup test. We've just got some potato flakes on both the carpet and on the bare floor. Now, this machine does have a manual height adjustment, so I have it on the next to highest setting for my carpet, and I'll turn it on the bare floor for hard floors. Keep in mind, this machine is not designed for bare floors, because you can't shut off the brush roller. So don't use this on bare floors, but if you need to in a pinch, let's see how it does. Okay. Well, the results on the carpet itself, pretty good. There's a couple flakes left, and of course there's a bunch where the transition strip is, but that's to be expected. That's usually how it goes. Now, looking at the bare floor, we can see it actually did get most of it. There's a couple left. It did snowplow some right there. I don't know if you can see that. It did snowplow some right there. But what it did get, it actually did seem to get most of it. So this machine's cleaning performance is thankfully really good. Now I think the real test is, let's see how much of this ended up on the pre-motor filter. And yeah, so some of the fine particulates and all of the hair that it picked up ended up right on the pre-motor filter. So this thing, according to the tag, is multi-cyclonic. First off, this setup is dual cyclonic at best, because you have an inner cyclone and an outer cyclone. That's dual cyclonic. And this is not effective dual cyclone. I've seen, this is the word, if this is even considered a dual cyclone, which I would not consider this cyclonic, because it's just not, this isn't an actual cyclone, it's just a discharge chamber. But if this was a dual cyclone, this is the worst performing dual cyclonic machine that I have ever used. Hands down, bar none. It's the worst performing, it's the worst filtering. While the machine does clean well, all of that debris just ends up on the filter. Well, maybe not all of it, but at least enough of it to make it frustrating. We can see most of it did end up in the bin. There was some fine dust in there. Some of it even got in the internal chamber as well. So, yeah, it did get it at least. There is a full line right there. But yeah, the simple fact that there's a bucket right here that basically just a dirt cup instead of an actual cyclone design with a trapdoor lid, very similar to the Bissell CleanView that's right behind it. The problem with this design is that there's no way to empty the dust out without it splashing all over, because you can't really empty this in a way that actually empties the dirt deep into the trash can unless you actually stick your entire arm in the trash can and turn it over. And the process of turning it over to dump everything out is going to cause some stuff to splash. Now, the solution that I personally found myself doing is that because this is, just a cup, there's no like electronics in here or anything, there's nothing to disassemble, and because of the fact that you can't really fill it up all the way anyway, so there's not going to be a lot of dirt in here when you do empty it, I just wash it out every time, because it's easy enough to dry this out with a towel and make sure it's completely dry before putting it back on the machine. So that's the way that I've elected to do it. I would just wash out this bin every time I empty it, dump it in my toilet, and then rinse it out one more time, and then just wipe it out with a towel. So that's one way you could do it without getting dust everywhere. It's essentially like a, like the poor man's water filtration at that point. But honestly, this would be just much easier with a bag. Now, this specifically isn't to pick on Bissell. This is, well, it is picking on this machine, but that's not out of spite or anything. This is a machine that I've had for a while and I only just now fixed up. But Bissell is capable of making designs that are able to filter much better. And in fact, even around the time they made this machine, they had just come out with another machine that did pretty well. At the very least, they had another machine that came out that kind of replaced this machine, and I'll just show you that, which is much better. And that machine is this. Now, unfortunately, they don't sell this machine anymore, but they do have an updated version of this. This is the Bissell CleanView Multi-Cyclonic. Now, again, Multi-Cyclonic, it's really dual cyclonic, but at least this is an actual proper design. You've got a gray button right here that you push. The entire assembly comes off. You have a button that you push to eject it into the trash. And you've got a washable filter right up here. And you can tell that this is filled with a good amount of debris. I've been using this. It's almost full. And that filter is nearly spotless. Sure, it's got some dust on it and a couple hairs, but it's not too bad. This is very reasonable as far as filter soilage after an extended period of use. And keep in mind, all this dirt, and that filter is barely dirty when you compare it to this, which is dirtier, despite the fact that this only has the dirt from one 10-second pickup test. Keep that in mind. And this has picked up a lot more fine dust than this has during this test. So, again, you've got a really, really rudimentary, ineffective cyclone on this machine, which really is a shame, because the actual cleaning performance is very good, and even the tools aren't too bad, which we'll talk about that in a sec. But again, this machine is just ruined by the filtration. And so, given the fact that I have both of these machines, some may ask, well, which one are you going to pick? It's no contest. This is better in every single way. Not to mention, this machine's lighter weight, it's easier to use, it has just as long as the cord, they both have 25-foot cords, and it has the same number of height adjustments, and this actually has a smaller base, which I actually prefer. This has a wide cleaning path, this just has the standard 13-inch cleaning path, whereas this is 15. But this is better, because this is able to get into areas and in between things that this cannot get. So, I personally do not see the appeal of wide path bases. A lot of people erroneously believe that you are able to cover more area, which, yes, while that is technically true, you can cover more area at once. You should be overlapping your passes whenever you're vacuuming carpets anyways, and if you're not doing that, you're not cleaning your carpets effectively. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how good the tool is that you have if you're not using it properly, and vice versa. So, the style of vacuuming that people should be using, which is vacuuming slowly and overlapping 50% of your strokes every time you push forward and pull back, then with that type of strategy for vacuuming in mind, the cleaning width doesn't matter. And in that case, the smaller width is actually better because the suction and the power is more concentrated. So again, this is actually better at cleaning. And also, just to drive the point home, you already saw the Hepa filter. That was a brand new Hepa filter. This machine, I have used this commercially twice, and then I've also filled this up once since getting it. So I've filled this bin probably 4 or 5 times. Never touched this filter underneath, this Hepa filter. So if I pull this out, let me push out this filter, that looks better than this filter, despite the fact that this filter was just changed 2 days ago. You can see that right there. You can see there's more dust on this filter. This one does look a little bit darker, but that's because it's a thicker filter, so there's less light being able to pass through. And this has less of an excuse because it's a much bigger filter with larger surface area. You see my point? So this whole thing is just much, much worse. So, for my money, the CleanView is the much better choice. Again, neither of these are for sale anymore, but the fact that they still sell CleanViews but don't sell this, I think, is driven home by the very poor design of this machine. Which sucks because the fact that it got rid of the pleated filter from the PowerForce bagless and the CleanView 2 and Helix kind of felt like it might have been a little, that they might have gotten it right, and that this Cyclone might have finally been more effective than the original 2002 CleanView. Unfortunately, that's not the case. Alright, I've harped on the filtration enough, so let's talk about the rest of the machine. So this is a 12 amp motor, just like the CleanView that I just showed, so it will use a good amount of power, but at least unlike other 12 amp vacuums, you actually do get a headlight on the front, so you at least do get something for the extra power. The headlight is easy to use, and I actually like having it, and if the bulb ever burns out, it's held in with just 2 Phillips head screws, so at least there's that. The pedal release, surprisingly, is not broken, despite it constantly breaking on these Bissells. This one works fine. We've got a power switch right there on the side, just like the CleanView. And if we look on the back, we've got our upper and lower cord hooks. The upper one swivels, as you'd expect. And if I take the phone off the tripod, we can see we've got our same upper cord clip, just like many other Bissells. And we've got a nice, long, wire-reinforced stretch hose with the built-in hose wand handle that Bissell has become famous for. So this hose actually does pretty good. It's not long enough to get up your stairs, but Jesus, this thing, sorry, the air is so dusty because of this stupid thing. Anyways, so you could theoretically get this up your stairs if you had a landing in between your 2 staircases and leave this at the bottom, but other than that, you're not going to get up your stairs with this. But the nice thing is it does stretch a good amount. And because of the fact that you can use the extension wand and the crevice tool, and they're actually very long, so this extension wand is longer than the CleanView, and we've got a nice long crevice tool as well. And while this combo tool is not as good as the dusting brush that comes on the CleanView, you do have a swiveling piece, although I only ever use it on the brush side, but you can swivel this to use the quote-unquote upholstery side. This brush is not an effective dusting brush. It really only works as an upholstery brush, and that's what I use it for, so this is not for dusting. But it actually is keyed at the bottom, so you can put it on the end of the crevice tool and use that as an extension with full power. So that's kind of a cool feature. And combined with the hose wand, if you put this on the end, you actually get a good amount of reach. So you can see right there, we've got a good amount of reach. Got a little handle, which is a little uncomfortable, but it's at least there. You can also just hold it right here, which is usually what I do. So you can actually reach. Let's see if this thing tips over. It might tip over. Yep, it did tip over. High mounted hose is going to do that. But we actually can get up here. Now, I'd be kind of worried because this is hard plastic, so it could scratch your walls. And you can tell the previous owners did a great job at painting this house. But yeah, so we can see it does kind of work. It's good enough to get your cobwebs and whatnot. But anything else other than that, you're not going to have too good of a time. So that is pretty much that. So unfortunately, this brush roller tried to actually burn my carpet, so I had to lean the machine back, which is not that pleasant. So whenever you're done, the combo tool snaps in right there, and the hose just pushes on. This is the same hose and attachments that you would find on something like a Bissell PowerForce Turbo, and the turbo brush is the same type of turbo brush that you would see on the clean views. So this turbo brush is thankfully very good, and it's actually better than the turbo brushes that newer Bissells come with. And one thing that's cool about all these old Bissells, well, all these Bissells of this design, is that you can use modern Dyson attachments as well. So ones from like the Dyson Ball Animal 2, Animal 3, DC25, DC14, not 14, 41, all work on this machine. But the turbo brush itself does work, and when you're done, it snaps in right up there. One other thing to mention is that this does use the same brush roller and the same Style 7 belts that all the standard Bissell PowerForces use. So as far as your expendables, of which there will be many, you shouldn't have too many issues. So that's it. This is my full review on the Bissell PowerGroom Multi-Cyclonic bagless upright vacuum. It's not a good machine, and not one that you should consider. It does have a little carrying handle mounted on the front right there, but other than that, there's not much going for it. Yes, it does clean pretty decently, and the attachments aren't too horrible, considering that you can substitute other attachments if you don't like them, and the hose is pretty decent. But at the end of the day, the filtration ruins the machine, and that's probably the most important part of any vacuum, because sure, if the filtration is just okay, like on this Bissell, then sure, it's not great, it's not good for someone with allergies, but at least normal people can get by. This, no. The only acceptable reason for anyone to own this machine is if you're crazy like me, or you're a vacuum collector, or you're the person who is about to buy this on Facebook. Because I'm not keeping this machine. The filtration is so horrible that I don't want to use it, even though there are other things I like about it, including the nice blue color. So that's that. An otherwise decent machine is ruined by the horrible filtration, and that just brings the whole thing down with it. So as sad as it is, this machine is leaving, because yeah, if I'm going to use a bagless Bissell, I'd rather use something like this. So that's that. This is Intellitech Studios signing out with my full in-depth review of the Bissell PowerGroom Multi-Cyclonic bagless upright vacuum. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you found it helpful potentially. And if you want to buy this machine, I will link the marketplace listing in the description. So I want to get rid of this thing, but you know, I did clean it up and all that, so whenever you actually get it, I'll have emptied it out again and cleaned the filters again, so it'll be as close to new as humanly possible. So yeah, Intellitech Studios signing out. Have a good one. Peace.